Jimbo Kimball. How did he lose his job? How'd that happen? Oh, what a jerk. Hey, everybody, welcome to Vince. Great to have you with us on a Thursday in a great country. It's so good to be talking to the best audience anywhere. We've got a big show today for you. Yes, we're going to take a closer look at how it is that Jimmy Kimmel finally figured out how to get fired by ABC. They say he's on indefinite suspension, which I think is another way of saying he's not coming back. We'll see. We'll talk about that coming up, what led up to that. And so much more on the program. It's always good to have you with us today. Our sponsors here include Fast Growing Trees, the great Fast Growing Trees. Fall is planting season. It really is. And did you know that so many plants and trees actually do better when they're planted this time of year? But the key is you got to know where to start. And that's why I love fastgrowingtrees.com. Doesn't matter if you live in the sunny south or if the air is getting chilly where you are, the plant experts can help you find that perfect fit for your space. And they've got all the plants that your yard needs, like the fruit trees and the privacy trees, the flowering trees, shrubs, and so much more. Order online, get your plants delivered directly to your door in just a few days without ever leaving home. Fast Growing Trees has made my yard awesome. I love the way Fast Growing Trees, all these trees, they arrive perfectly packaged, safe, ready to go into the ground. You get them in the ground, and then your neighbors are like, where the heck did that tree come from? That's fastgrowingtrees.com. This fall, they've got the best deals for your yard, up to half off on select plants and other deals. And listeners to this show get 15% off their first purchase when using the code VINCE at checkout. That's 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com. Use that code VINCE at checkout. Now's the perfect time to plant. Use VINCE to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. All right, so Jimmy Kimmel has been placed on indefinite suspension by ABC this week. This after he was trying to blame MAGA people, I think he's talking about you, for Charlie Kirk's assassination last week. This is what it sounded like on Monday night when Jimmy Kimmel instantly started his show with not a joke, but a slander. Here he goes.
Some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from.
Yeah, they tried to make it seem like he was anything but one of them. What do you mean trying to make it seem like? It was abundantly clear from the moment that the shots were fired. Why would a conservative try and take out Charlie Kirk, you disgusting human being? So he was a part of an effort that went through last weekend where the left was trying to say, actually, it was people on the right who killed Charlie Kirk, and they deserve scorn here. And so by the time his program airs Monday evening, and just so you know, these late night shows, they record like early Monday afternoon in that case. And even at that late hour, he knew there was no way. This guy's a complete lefty. And yet he goes on TV anyway and implies that it's some sort of MAGA person who did this. He's a vile human being. He's been vile for a long time, and it's all just finally catching up with him. The thing that seems to have broken ABC's back here is the fact that their affiliates across the country, their broadcast affiliates across the country, were so outraged by what Jimmy Kimmel had said on television that they were opting out entirely of airing Jimmy Kimmel's broadcast going forward. And this includes two of the biggest affiliate collaborations in the country. The Nexstar Media Group, which is a television group, it owns tons of television stations across the country. It owns about 30 ABC affiliates, as well as Sinclair, which also owns about 30 ABC affiliates across the country. Both of these organizations decided this week that they would not be airing Jimmy Kimmel anymore for the foreseeable future in light of his vile commentary. This is Nexstar and what they had to say on the subject. They announced this yesterday. That would be Wednesday of this week, Nexstar Media Group today announced that the company's owned and partner television stations affiliated with the ABC television network will preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live for the foreseeable future, beginning with tonight's program. That was supposed to be last night. Nexstar strongly objects to the comments that Jimmy Kimmel made regarding the killing of Charlie Kirk and will replace the show with other programming in its ABC-affiliated markets. They go on to say that his comments about Charlie's death are both offensive and insensitive at a critical time in our national political discourse. We don't believe they reflect the spectrum of opinions, views, or values of the local communities in which we're located. That was the president of Nexstar, their broadcasting division, who said that. They said continuing to give Jimmy Kimmel a broadcast platform in the communities we serve, that's not in the public interest at the current time. And we've made the difficult decision to preempt his show. Well, it shouldn't have been a difficult decision. This should have happened a while ago. In an effort to let cooler heads prevail as we move toward the resumption of respectful, constructive dialogue. So Nexstar coming out saying, no, we're not doing this anymore. The other organization, as I mentioned here, is Sinclair. Sinclair, they own a ton of these television stations across the country. They, too, came out with a statement saying they're not going to be airing Kimmel anymore. Sinclair's ABC stations are actually going to air a remembrance of Charlie Kirk this Friday during the Jimmy Kimmel Live time slot. Sinclair has decided to indefinitely, as they told ABC, preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live beginning tonight. Following these discussions, ABC suspended the production of Jimmy Kimmel Live entirely. The vice chairman at Sinclair, a guy called Jason Smith, said that Kimmel's remarks were, quote, inappropriate and deeply insensitive. At a critical moment for our country, we believe broadcasters have a responsibility to educate and elevate respectful, constructive dialogue in our communities. Ladies and gentlemen, consequence culture comes for Jimmy Kimmel. And the screeching about this is over the top right now. Oh no, Jimmy Kimmel. If they can come for Jimmy Kimmel, they can come for you. Oh, please. My God, this guy is so out of control. The guy routinely has said completely insane things on television. Do you remember this earlier this year? Here's cut 10. Watch this. This is Jimmy Kimmel celebrating terror attacks on Teslas earlier this year. Look.
Co-president Elon Musk sent a SpaceX vehicle to bring the astronauts back, and when they landed, he fired them immediately upon landing. Tesla stock is way down, almost disastrously so. People have been vandalizing Tesla vehicles, new Tesla vehicles. Please don't vandalize. Don't ever vandalize Tesla vehicles. And so...
Yeah, isn't that funny? That little wink and a nod. Yeah, go ahead. Vandalize Tesla vehicles. You can see the dramatic comedic pause. Yeah. Actually, I'm encouraging you. I'm saying the opposite of what I mean. So Jimmy Kimmel was encouraging the terrorism earlier this year, and of course, wasn't taken off the air then. It only took this latest atrocity to finally get him booted. What it really took is the bottom line being threatened at ABC when these affiliate groups, Nexstar and Sinclair, finally came in and said, hey, we're not doing this anymore. We can't be a part of this. We can't stomach this. That was the only thing that got ABC to actually move here. So a round of applause to Nexstar and Sinclair for doing this at this late date. And remember, after Jimmy Kimmel did that, after Kimmel threatened these Tesla stations on the air, I want to remind you, we had J.D. Vance on our program on this show. We had the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, on this program. And after we had J.D. on, and during that conversation, I talked to the Vice President about Jimmy Kimmel's insane remarks. And we went back and forth. That very night, Kimmel went on air to attack this show, to attack the Vice President of the United States in this show. Why would he do that? Why would you do that, Jimbo Kimmel? Here he is. This is earlier this year. Take a look here. This is Jimmy Kimmel attacking J.D. Vance in this fine program.
Just me, you.
On Jimmy Kimmel's television program and on The Daily Show this week, you have audiences outright cheering, seeing the images of Teslas on fire across the country. And I saw that and I thought, man, that really is a sign of how much the left has conditioned people to think that that's acceptable.
Yeah, though I will say in defense of the American people, Jimmy Kimmel's show is so unfunny and boring and left-wing that it's probably not a representative sample. If you go to a Jimmy Kimmel live viewing, you have to really be a humorless scold.
Did you hear what he just called you? He called you humorless scolds. What is wrong with you people? Are you trying to make JD's mascara run? What's going? A humorless scold. Who talketh like that? The Archbishop of Canterbury? What? Go on.
There are these judges. Judge Boasberg comes to mind. Lots of judges who are trying to basically say the president can't exercise the powers of the presidency. You're an attorney. How do you assess the legal battles here?
Yeah, I bet all those judges are huge fans of Jimmy Kimmel, by the way. But I think, Vince, that, one, we have an appeals process.
Good one, JD. You shoehorned that one in real good. Sometimes I wonder in what world is the vice president of the United States calling into a giant tooth podcast host to badmouth me and the people who watch this show. The people of this country are frustrated. Look at what's happening.
Yeah, so there you go. So he's taking all sorts of shots at the vice president of the United States and, of course, yours truly, the giant tooth podcast host, which I'm perfectly comfortable with my giant teeth. But boy, whatever happened to that Jimbo Kimball guy? Where did he go? What happened to that? Anyway, so he's been taken off the air for being a vile human being. No, just unreal. Just unreal. So there you go. And yes, and some people are pointing out in the chat that look, it's not just the television groups who came in and said that Jimmy Kimmel's behavior was crazy. It was the FCC chairman, Brendan Carr. Brendan Carr earlier this week was saying, look, these broadcast licenses that the FCC gives out to these networks like ABC, they're done so with the public interest in mind. Broadcasters have an obligation to the public interest with their broadcast license. And what public interest does it serve? If one of your signature hosts is going on television and claiming that conservatives murdered Charlie Kirk, or at least heavily implying that it was a MAGA guy who did it, what public interest does that serve? What public interest does it serve if you've got a host who's rooting on Tesla terror attacks? Tell me, where's the public interest in that? Why should you and I, by way of the FCC, be conferring a license on ABC to spread that type of vile slander against our countrymen and to encourage violence against our country? In what world? In fact, here's Brendan Carr explaining this week why this matters so much. Take a look. Cut 8.
Broadcasters are different than any other form of communication, including here. We're on cable right now. Fox News doesn't have an FCC license. CNN doesn't. But ABC, CBS, NBC, those broadcast stations do. And with that license comes a unique obligation to operate in the public interest. President Trump ran directly at these legacy broadcast outlets, and he exposed them to these market forces. And a lot of these affiliate groups said, to your point, we're tired of carrying this stuff. There's more work to go, but I'm very glad to see that America's broadcasters are standing up to serve the interests of their community. We don't just have this progressive foie gras coming out from New York and Hollywood.
Yeah, that's right. So in other words, like the FCC is doing what it's supposed to, which is overseeing the public interest here. And again, that doesn't serve it. I mean, let me just ask a really basic question here. Why is the left getting so worked up about this right now? About the FCC being involved at all? In fact, just ask Janet Jackson. It's not the first time the FCC has gone after a boob. It's just the latest. In fact, the left is so upset about this that I can't do anything but crack up at it. Let's look at the insanity here. You've got Mueller's pit bull, Andrew Weissman. Look at this, cut 2. He's freaking out. This is the same guy who worked on behalf of Bob Mueller to weaponize the government to go after Trump and Trump supporters and try and stagger the Trump presidency. This is Bob Mueller, a man who has used the government as a weapon, bemoaning somehow that the government is being used as a weapon. What is he talking about? Here's Andrew Weissmann. Watch.
I had lunch with my parents and I asked them about the McCarthy era, Joseph McCarthy. Sure. And I said, compare that, living through that, and living through Trump 1.0. And they said that 1.0 was better because at least then there were people speaking up and you didn't feel alone, and that there was a real sense of the First Amendment and you weren't terrified, and it wasn't this idea of silencing. And that is the thing that we talked about on this show, and we've talked about it before, is that slipping into the use of fear and the levers of power to recapitulate a really hideous point in our history in the 1950s of the Red Scare and what was done to people in Hollywood, in academia, in government. And that is the concern, is that you're going to see that kind of silence that is being used through government power.
Can you imagine if the government was to arbitrarily go after somebody on the basis of their politics, not based on anything whatsoever, instead just weaponizing the government? What do you think you did, Weissmann? How do you think you got your MSNBC gig? What do you think they hired you because you were some arbiter of the truth? You were the burning bush, that you're there to present facts in some sort of dispassionate way? No, you're a hatchet man. You're a guy who's abused his power routinely. You should be in jail for what you did. And then you get on television, you lecture the rest of us about how the Constitution is supposed to work. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, we'll take that seriously. And so that's how Weissmann responded to it. The Levi Strauss heir, Dan Goldman, the congressman, he was spazzing out over this last night. Oh no, Jimbo Kimball. Cut 3, take a look.
I don't know who infuriates me more, the Trump administration and Brendan Carr for so blatantly threatening a company with their license based on very, very obvious First Amendment protected speech, or the companies that continue to cave to this completely improper behavior. And we saw it with ABC when they settled. We've saw it with CBS. We now see it again with ABC. We've seen it with the tech companies. We've seen it with law firms. Donald Trump is a bully. He is a wannabe mob boss who will push the envelope to the end of the earth. And he ignores the law. He does not believe the law or the Constitution applies to him. And the problem is that everyone is cowing to him. It is completely inappropriate what Brendan Carr said and did. And it is also inappropriate that ABC and Nexstar followed. And the reality that they would cower to these threats that are such an obvious breach of the First Amendment when the First Amendment protects the media is incredibly disappointing.
You know, they're so mad that you're winning. They're so mad that you're winning. They hate this. They hate that they're being subjected to the rules that they created for everybody else. And by the way, this time in a justified way. They're mad. Look how hard they fight for people that nobody really observes or watches. I mean, think about when has the left gone ballistic this year? Well, they go ballistic a lot. But remember when USAID was defunded? An organization that barely anybody even knew what it was about. And the reason for that is because the left was trying to conceal that it was just a gigantic slush fund. They were robbing taxpayers blind to fund left-wing operations. They went crazy. They couldn't believe that Donald Trump was defunding USAID. It was horror. They're going crazy that Stephen Colbert is being canceled right now by CBS. They're going ballistic that Jimbo Kimball is being removed from ABC. It's amazing. It's like, and these are shows that don't even have ratings anymore. Just to be clear, they've been on these shows. Have essentially non-existent audiences now. If you look at the Nielsen ratings for these programs, they have fallen off a cliff over the last decade. It's not hard to see why. It's because if the point of your show is to be amusing and to be a comedy show and to sort of be a palate cleanser for the day, an opportunity for people to unwind, to flip on their television and get a couple of mindless laughs. That's not what this was. This was just histrionic left-wing screeching that drove the audience away. And as they did that descent, as they continued to try and narrowcast to the most radical, insane left-wing audience, the kind of audience that would sit there and laugh and encourage attacks on Tesla, the kind of audience that's going to chuckle along as you blame the right for Charlie Kirk's assassination. Well, yeah, at some point, the business interests are finally going to wake up and go, what are we doing? Why are we airing any of this nonsense? So yeah, long overdue, well-deserved, this cancellation. And the left is freaking out about it. Another lefty who can't hold a job in media is spazzing out about this. That is, remember Keith Olbermann? At one time, the highest-rated host? The highest-rated host on MSNBC. Look how angry he is. Burn in hell, Sinclair, he tweeted out overnight, alongside Charlie Kirk. Talk about emotionally incontinent. That guy's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. He's insane. But he's representative of this left-wing impulse, which is just like, we hate you. We hate you. We want you to die. That's the Keith Olbermann take. And they're going to war now against these broadcasters. In a moment, I'm going to take you through this, but can you believe it? Lefties are now calling for boycotts of Disney, which owns ABC. Lefties are now calling for boycotts of Disney, which is just amazing. Disney, which has gone so woke and so insane and so devalued its own currency among normal Americans over the last few years. I don't know. How many people on the right do you know who have given up on Disney entirely? They're like, what? You've screwed up everything. You screwed up everything that made you great. You wokeified everything. You destroyed all the superhero movies. You've wrecked it. So lefties calling for boycotts of Disney? What's next? What's next? For President Trump's next trick, he's going to get lefties to say that only women should play women's sports. I don't know what's happening, but I do feel like the country is healing right now. More in a moment. Yeah, Mazie Hirono. Yeah, no, Justin reminds me. Mazie Hirono this week was just saying that it's unfair that women would have to do pull-ups in order to become FBI agents because they're different than men. You got to look for the silver linings, ladies and gentlemen, and they're popping up everywhere right now. All right, more in a moment on this edition of Vince. It's great to have you with us as Jimbo Kimball is on the unemployment line. Hey, if you've been living on credit cards by any chance, just to cover groceries, gas, bills, and you know those interest rates out there, they're brutal. Why keep paying 20% or more to the banks when you could call my friends at American Financing? They've got mortgage rates in the 5s, and they're showing people every day how to keep more of your hard-earned money in your pocket and out of the hands of the credit card companies. Right now, American Financing is helping homeowners save an average of $800 a month by using their home equity to wipe out high-interest debt with no upfront fees, no obligation, and just a 10-minute call to a salary-based mortgage consultant. And here's the kicker. If you start today, well, you could delay 2 mortgage payments, putting even more cash in your hands right away. Now, don't wait. Call American Financing now at 888-879-6460. That's 888-879-6460. AmericanFinancing.net/Vince. That's AmericanFinancing.net/Vince. NMLS number 182334, NMLSConsumerAccess.org. APR for rates in the 5 start at 6.327% for well-qualified borrowers. Call 888-879-6460 for details about credit costs and terms. Thank you, American Financing. Okay, yeah, you do have the left here, which is calling for boycotts of Disney now, which is a funny impact of all of this. Here's a guy called Wears a Hat Ali. I don't know if that's because he wears a hat. I'm not sure what the explanation for this is. But here he is saying that every major talent that works for ABC and Disney should refuse to show up for work until Jimmy Kimmel is reinstated. Yeah, Disney, all of Disney should collapse now for this. Marvel movies need to shut down. Ditto the sitcoms. And I love that this guy wears a hat. His view is that, you can tell too, he thinks that you and I want to watch Marvel movies right now. That'll teach the right. If we deprive them of their Marvel movies, what are you talking? Marvel is a dumpster fire right now, thanks to Disney. Marvel's a complete dumpster fire. Fine. Join the boycott. If you're joining it, you're joining a ton of people on the right who are already boycotting Disney. Collective boycott, says wears a hat. Corporations love money more than anything, and this will really harm them and force them to do the right thing. Great. Wonderful. Come on in, fellas. Join in with your insane reasoning. Whatever. Go for it. Wears a hat's not alone. There's a lady called JoJo from Jers. She was a feature in the Biden White House. She was routinely welcomed. Boycott everything affiliated with ABC and Disney. Pass it on, she tweets out. Now, of course, they're posting it on Twitter. My guess is they're also posting equally hysterical things on Blue Sky, which is where all the lefties go. But, you know, this is a little rich. I can't believe you would cancel somebody or somebody would lose their gig on television. Do you remember a couple things here? Do you remember the fact that when Tucker Carlson got fired by Fox News, do you remember the fact that these people were celebrating like it was the greatest thing that had ever happened in our country? Oh, this is great. Oh, this is just wonderful. The whole country's going to be way better now. This is so fantastic. In fact, here's Jimbo Kimball himself celebrating in Cut 9 in 2023. Fox fires Tucker, and Jimbo Kimball is absolutely throwing a party. Take a look.
Fox News has severed bow ties with Tucker Carlson. After all these years, they are parting ways, which means he was fired. I mean, that's really what parting ways means. Tucker couldn't be reached for comment. He's already on a plane to Moscow to meet with his manager. But what a shock. I mean, what an absolutely delightful shock this is. Now Tucker can spend more time at home tanning his testicles and touching himself to that sexy green M&M. Sadly, he's probably not done poisoning old people's brains. The question now is, where will he do it next? Will he go to OAN? Will he go to Newsmax? Will he crawl back up Satan's fiery beehole from whence he came? We don't know. One of the most despicable mother Tuckers ever to appear on American television.
Isn't that nice? Isn't that a nice send-off? So there you go. Somebody said in the chat, "You reap what you sow," and that's Jimbo Kimball, who was absolutely thrilled to see somebody canned from their gig because he hated their politics. And now what, Jimmy? Now what? Now all of this whining about, the FCC chairman said that the public interest matters here. How dare he? He's interfering with free speech. Really? That's your position? Does the left really want to go down this road of, the government shouldn't get involved in trying to interfere with speech in any capacity? That's weird, because I remember this really clearly. I remembered the left completely weaponizing the federal government against free speech. I don't know about you. You remember this, chat? You familiar with that occurrence? Like, the entire Biden presidency? Anything? Anything? Any bells going off? Weaponization Committee. This is earlier this year, the House Judiciary Committee. Weaponization Committee exposes the Biden White House censorship regime in new report. This is merely a summary of the things you and I have been talking about for years now. The House Judiciary Committee releasing a report entitled "The Censorship Industrial Complex: How Top Biden White House Officials Coerced Big Tech to Censor Americans' True Information and Critics of the Biden Administration." And they say, after reviewing tens of thousands of emails and non-public documents between the Biden White House and Big Tech, the committee's report reveals Big Tech changed their content moderation policies because of the Biden White House. The Biden White House's censorship targeted true information, satire, and other content that did not violate the platform's policies. The Biden White House's censorship campaign had a chilling effect on other speech. The White House had leverage because the companies had other policy concerns involving the Biden administration, and the Biden White House pushed censorship of books, not just social media. And that is a very short summary of the way that the Biden administration interfered. Remember that, RFK Jr. had his communications, the current HHS secretary had his communications censored by the Biden administration, who threatened the big tech companies into compliance. The aforementioned Tucker Carlson had monologues about the failing efficacy of things like the vaccine and masks on his show. And then what did the Biden administration do? They went to Facebook and they said, you need to stop this video from getting out there. People cannot see this. What did Facebook do? They suppressed the reach. In other words, they constrained the size of the audience that could even see the monologues that Tucker was posting to Facebook. Yeah, you want to talk about a threat to the First Amendment? And in that case, Tucker was telling the truth and the government was stopping it from being disseminated. Whereas this week, Jimbo Kimball is telling people that it may have been a MAGA person. In fact, it was very likely a MAGA person who assassinated Charlie Kirk. And now the left is throwing a shit fit that he doesn't have a job anymore. Do the math on this. It's so obvious what's going on here. I do like that the left is screeching about this, and I do like that what they're experiencing right now is truly the consequence culture that they deserve. So in other words, I have no sympathy for this idiot because he doesn't deserve any whatsoever. All right, more coming up on the program. Let me see. I think I've got some. Do I have any remainders from that? I might. But one of the other things I want to get to today is the poison that Barack Obama is spreading now. Obama has popped up in public in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, and he's acting like he's the adult in the room, like he's going to be the guy who's somehow going to unify the rest of us. But as usual, an absolutely poisonous approach by the former president of the United States. I'll explore why it is that way and what he's really saying. And it's just too crazy. It's all ahead on this edition of Vince. Glad to have you with us, the best audience anywhere, truly. Let's see here. You know the name Blackout Coffee? Proudly the official coffee of all of us here at Silverlock. And there is a reason for that. This is bold, unapologetic, America First coffee, roasted fresh right here in the United States. It's not grocery store junk. Blackout Coffee delivers rich, high-quality roasts that actually taste like freedom. And now you can set it and you can forget it with auto refill and recurring delivery. This means no more running out, no more watered-down backups, just your favorite roast, delivered fresh on your schedule. Pick your favorite roast, how often you want it delivered, and not only do you get a discount, but you also get double the rewards and free shipping to your doorstep. One of the things I forgot to do today, I didn't really forget to have my Blackout Coffee. I definitely have my Blackout. I just don't have a cup in front of me. For those of you watching the video podcast, you haven't seen me drinking it because I forgot to put a cup of Blackout in front of me today. But I did have my Blackout this morning. I started with a cup of Blackout Coffee this morning, and then I got a workout in. And then after my workout, I had a protein shake. But here's the trick. Justin, pay attention to this. You're going to love this tip. Put a shot or two of Blackout into the protein shake. Holy crap. It's really good. That's what I did this morning. It was awesome. You should try it too if you want to try some new things. But either way, Blackout Coffee is just great on its own. Here's what you do. Go to blackoutcoffee.com/Vince. Use the code Vince. That's VINCE. Get 20% off your first order. Whether you're into bold dark roasts, flavored coffee, or even instant, Blackout's got your back. Real coffee, no compromise. Blackoutcoffee.com/Vince. Get yours now. Blackout Coffee. So good. Isn't that a good move? It is a good move. I'm telling you, it tastes very good. It tastes very good. Also, I've been using that Bone Charge infrared sauna blanket and the red light face mask. Allison uses that, my wife, ever since they sent them to us, and we can't recommend them enough. I first turned to that sauna blanket to help with muscle recovery and detoxification. It's become a game changer. It's easy to use. I just wrap myself up in the infrared heat, and it works its magic. And I've noticed a huge difference for me in how I relax and how I rejuvenate and how I feel afterward. Allison loves the red light face mask. In fact, it's a really easy charge. It holds a charge forever. She just puts that thing on each night. And it's helping improve her skin's texture, reducing inflammation. She's seen fantastic results from it. It's like having a mini spa treatment right at home. So if you're thinking about trying these products out, well, you're in luck. Head to Bone Charge, BONCharge.com. Use the code Vince at checkout. Get 15% off. Both of these products have made a huge impact on us and our wellness routine. You're going to love them too. Use the code VINCE at bonecharge.com. Save 15%. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition. All right. Let's see here. I've got some things. We have Obama. Let me go down the list here on Obama. And I promise I'm going to interrupt him a lot. You're not going to have to just listen to Obama straight through because that's awful. Nobody wants to do that. But I do think that this deserves a fact check and a dunking that it's not getting everywhere. So let's do that here. Obama was at an event this week, yesterday, I think. The video started getting around yesterday, where he was talking about what is going on with the Charlie Kirk assassination and the aftermath of it. Now, you and I have been having a very rational conversation after Charlie Kirk's death, and it's, how do we stop this, right? In the wake of a tragedy like this, normal people assess, what can we do to prevent further tragedies like that from taking place? How can we stop the radical left from inflaming these weak and vicious minds to take up arms against Americans like Charlie, against Americans like the rest of us? How do we stop that from happening? Well, that's a really rational and sober conversation to have. The left doesn't want to have that. The left is trying to walk away from this. They're trying to cast blame on everybody else. In fact, you heard it in the Jimmy Kimmel assessment this week, the insanity of that, saying that it was probably a MAGA guy who did it. And then you've got lefties who are saying, well, the problem really exists on both sides, as if you and I have to bear some sort of responsibility for Charlie Kirk's awful demise last week. And no, we don't. Screw you. This is a creation of the left, this poison. And the left needs to stop this. And so Obama gets up on a stage yesterday and he starts playing the same game. And he starts suggesting that, that it's somehow the Trump administration's fault for spreading poison from the White House. Listen to this idiotic assessment, this poisonous assessment from a man who routinely, speaking very slowly and deliberatively, tries to divide our country on a routine basis. Here's Obama this week.
This lately, and frankly, coming from the White House and some of the other positions of authority that suggest, even before we had determined who the perpetrator of this evil act was, that somehow we're going to identify an enemy. We're going to suggest that somehow that enemy was at fault, and we are then going to use that as a rationale for trying to silence discussion around who we are as a country and what direction we should go.
All right, listen to the moralizing bullshit coming out of that guy's mouth. So what Obama is suggesting here is that we just had no idea what the motive was in the early hours. And so you and I and President Trump, we made up a motive just to use it as some sort of weapon against Democrats in a political battle, which is insanity, which is complete insanity. And the reason I can say that so confidently is because we knew within hours that the bullets had inscribed on the side of them all sorts of Antifa messages that clearly indicating that this was a left-wing radical. Not least of all, we could arrive at that conclusion based on the target. It was Charlie Kirk. No conservative was trying to gun that guy down. Conservatives celebrated Charlie Kirk. The whole thing is so crazy. And you can't remove the actual context from this conversation, which is that this is a part of a long run of very violent left-wingers taking up arms against conservatives. We've talked a lot about the attack on Steve Scalise by James Hodgkinson. He's the Bernie Sanders campaign volunteer who opened up fire back in 2017. We've talked about that. And remember, lots of Republican congressmen on that field who were going to be massacred were it not for Capitol Police officers opening fire to stop Hodgkinson from killing them. He wanted to target Republicans. As then Congressman Ron DeSantis was walking off of that baseball field, Hodgkinson walked up to him and said, "Are these Republicans or Democrats?" And DeSantis very, innocently was like, "Oh, it's just Republicans. We're practicing." And that's when he went and he grabbed his gun to try and slaughter the baseball field. That's the truth. In his pocket, when they got to his body, they found a list of Republican congressmen. And that, of course, is not the only attack of this nature. There have been a lot of attacks like this on conservatives for being conservative by left-wingers. Those Tesla terror attacks are evidence of that. There's been attacks on Christians at the Annunciation Catholic Church just weeks ago by a deranged, trans, radical left-winger shooting children. At the Covenant Christian School, we saw the same thing. An attack by a left-wing trans lunatic attacking Christian children. So excuse us for being on guard for a never-ending stream of left-wing violence, Obama. And so those are not the words of a man who wants to fix this problem. Those are the words of a man who wants to cover it up and pretend it's not happening, and then blame us for some sort of moral failing for noticing it. No, we're not going to play that game at all. More from Obama. But again, the reason this matters so much is because Obama, when he speaks, he forms the skeleton of the left's talking points. The left adheres to the very sorts of garbage that is coming out of Obama's mouth, where he's trying to sound like he's being very measured and reasonable and unifying when he's anything but.
And that's a mistake as well. And so, look, obviously I didn't know Charlie Kirk. I was generally aware of some of his ideas. I think those ideas were wrong.
You got that? I was aware of them. I was generally aware of his ideas. I think his ideas were wrong. What is that move? Well, that's deceit is what it is. I barely knew what he believed in, but I do know that I disagree with everything that he said. That's deceit. That's poisonous. What kind of ideas? Now Obama will do what you've seen a lot of lefties do. They will pretend that Charlie had positions that he didn't actually have, and then they'll attack the positions that he didn't have. And notice that when Obama lays Charlie's positions out here, he acts as if Charlie is a racist. Pay attention.
But that doesn't negate the fact that what happened was a tragedy and that I mourn for him and his family. He's a
sure you
man with 2 small children and a wife who obviously, and a huge number of friends and supporters who cared about him. And so we have to extend grace to people during their period of mourning.
Here comes the but.
We can also, at the same time, say that I disagree with the idea that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a mistake.
He's so vile.
That's not me
He's so
politicizing the issue. It's making an observation about who are we as a country. I can say that I disagree with the suggestion that my wife.
I thought he was going to say is a man. I swear to you, I thought those were going to be the words that came out of his mouth. I was like, did you really think that, Justin? I thought he was going to say that. I was like, did Charlie ever say that Michelle was actually Big Mike? I was wondering. But he goes down a different road here.
Or Justice Jackson does not have adequate brain processing power. Well,
by the way, Ketanji Brown Jackson doesn't even know what a woman is. So I think that the evidence is out there that she doesn't have adequate brain processing power. In fact, the rest of the court routinely makes a mockery of Ketanji Brown Jackson. But you see what he's leaning on here. This is a dog whistle for the left. he's playing this game where he's suggesting that, oh, Charlie Kirk thinks that black women have low IQs. That's what he's trying to suggest here. That is not a position that Charlie Kirk advocated for or had or anything like it. It's just complete garbage. He's complete garbage. Charlie, like so many other smart conservatives through the years, like Clarence Thomas, thinks that affirmative action does a disservice to black Americans because this idea that you would advance people on the basis of their skin color and not their merit leaves people with an impression that people were advanced based on things that have nothing to do with merit. That's a burden that you should not place on human beings. And meanwhile, you should not advance unqualified people into jobs that they're not qualified for at the expense of the rest of us because you're sucking up to the altar of diversity. It's like so crazy. Nobody's for that. But Obama's for it. Obama's for it. And so Obama is trying to very heavily imply here that, yeah, I'm sad that he died, but let's be honest, he was kind of a racist. That's the position Obama's advancing on this stage.
I can say that I disagree that Martin Luther King was awful. I can disagree with some of the broader suggestions of that liberals and Democrats are promoting a conspiracy to displace whites and replace them by ushering in illegal immigrants. Those are all topics that we have to be able to discuss.
Okay, so a couple of things. One, I don't know. I've never heard Charlie say that MLK was awful. I'm not even familiar with what he's talking about. Is he saying that MLK had moral failings? That's true. MLK did have moral failings, like the rest of us. That is true. But this thing about what is it that he said? This replacement theory stuff. Look, this is not something that came out of the right, this whole replacement conversation. The left, this is Obama's party that came up with this whole concept. They called it demographic change. They referred to it as demographics is destiny. They were writing books about this in the early 2000s. And the thought process was, hey, if we import enough foreign nationals into our country, then we can change the demographics of the United States, and that will lead to long-term Democrat power. It was quite literally a feature of Democrat Party power politics to the point that they were bragging about it. Now, they overestimated the extent to which that skin color would lead to Democrat power. Big time. Because President Trump, through multiple elections now, has reshaped the electorate in such a way that more people of every skin color are now voting for Republicans. Democrats got this theory completely wrong. But it was never a Republican theory. It was always a Democrat strategy. And so Obama is once again pretending like he's being the big intellectual here and giving you some sort of masterclass in the way that Republicans operate, when in fact all he's doing is gaslighting that audience and anybody who listens to this with an uncritical ear. He's just gaslighting people. What's the headline, Justin? Oh, yes, the Michelle Goldberg piece from 2018. We can replace them. We can replace. It's just nonsense. Yes, demographics are destiny. The chat noticing. Yeah, you've all been alive for this, right, everybody? You remember all of this. And so Obama's just lying about it on that stage. Now, I won't force you to stomach all of the rest of this, but I do want to carry you forward to one other thing here that he says. Let me see. This happens about 5 minutes into this clip. Then he does this move, which I don't think has received enough attention, so I'm going to give it attention. He does this move where he says that the attack on that Charleston church, the guy who attacked it, that awful human being, Dylan Roof. Remember, this is a black church in Charleston, South Carolina. The churchgoers there welcomed Dylan Roof in for a Bible study, And at some point during his time inside the church, he pulls out a gun and he opens fire and he slaughters a bunch of people. It is just awful what happened, killing all these poor Christians who are in a place of worship. Obama turns this into some sort of attack on the right. Now, listen to this. This is the kind of poison that he spreads. Listen to this.
In the aftermath of tragedies, when Dylan Roof went into a black church and, based on his own words, shot a group of folks who were engaged in Bible study and who had invited him in. And according to him, it was for racist reasons. As President of the United States, my response was not, who may have influenced this troubled young man to engage in that kind of violence, and now let me go after my political opponents. And
oh, what bullshit. First of all, as President of the United States, you have an obligation to examine whether there are root causes that could have prevented this. So the idea that I never wanted to go after who could have influenced the guy. What? Why wouldn't you just try and stare at the influences behind that horrific attack? What is wrong with you? And then you hear the twist. I didn't use that to go after my political opponents. Now, what is he suggesting? Well, he's suggesting that Republicans are the reason that Dylan Roof opened fire on a Christian church in Charleston. Now, you tell me, do you know a single Republican that in any way shares a sliver of the views of Dylan Roof? Let's review. Dylan Roof goes in, he kills black Christians in a place of worship during Bible study. And I went and I checked today. I was like, Dylan Roof, like a lot of these idiots, these shooters, they have manifestos. You know what Dylan Roof thought? He hated the American flag. He despised the sight of the American flag. Now, you tell me, do you know a Republican who shares any of those sentiments? The answer to that, at least in my life, is no. No. Attacking Christians? Hating the American flag? Attacking black people? These are anathema to Republicans. It's the polar opposite of what it means to be a Republican, a conservative, someone who loves your country, has an appreciation for life. The Republicans are the party of civil rights. The Republicans are the party of ending slavery. The whole thing is such an inversion of the truth. It's utterly contemptible. And so Obama sits up there and he says, I could have used that Dylan Roof attack as an attack on my political opponents, but I resisted. That's also bullshit. In the wake of the Charleston attack, Obama did what Democrats always do. He exploited it in an effort to disarm law-abiding citizens. He instantly came out and demanded gun control. That's the words of the left. So no, he wasn't sitting back and I just called for unity. No, you didn't. No, you instantly came out and you sought to exploit the death of those people to make Americans less safe, to disarm the rest of us. And now here you are trying to project the sins of that crazy person onto the Republicans. You're a vile human being. You're just a vile human being. And if you really cared about attacks on Christians, I would hear from you more frequently when the Annunciation Catholic Church is attacked, when the Covenant School is attacked. And not just Christians, but Jews. What about when Jewish people are attacked in synagogues by these deranged ideologies? What about when Jewish people are being gunned down in the streets of Washington, D.C. by deranged lefties who hate them for being Jewish? You understand, this is all garbage coming out of Obama's mouth. He's not expressing genuine care about anybody. He's trying to exploit these events for political advantage. The very thing that he's accusing you of doing for mourning the death of Charlie Kirk and trying to figure out a way to prevent other deaths like that from happening again in the future. So I just want to remind you that that this is insanity. But in case you see iterations of this, derivations of this coming out of the left, you'll understand these are the talking points that they're relying on. And that Dylan Roof thing that you just heard from Obama, he's not the only one I've heard say that this week. You've had other lefties try and say the same thing. What about that Dylan Roof thing? That Dylan Roof, when, in what world would a Republican abide an attack on black people and Christians? That's insanity. You know, one of the unfortunate realities in the attack on Charlie Kirk, though, is that the ideology that appears to have animated Tyler Robinson is very much a mainstream ideology in the Democrat Party. That's the other side of this. Tyler Robinson was animated by the kind of contempt that you hear everywhere for Charlie Kirk from the left. Tyler Robinson, in the text messages, in the Discord chats to his parents, was expressing the very same kind of this guy's the enemy, he has to be stopped kind of views that we hear too frequently on the left. He was animated by the poisonous transgender ideology that convinces human beings that they're born in the wrong body, and if you don't accept that, that somehow makes you a Nazi. It's completely demented, but it is all too mainstream on the left. Contrast that with the lies that Obama's telling about the right, in other words. I can identify a bunch of very dangerous strands of left-wing thinking inside of Tyler Robinson's motivation. And that's the point. That's really what we're getting at. Which is, if you want to stop more Tyler Robinsons from opening fire on more Charlie Kirks, then stop filling the heads of weak and vicious-minded people with lies. Stop it. The left bears responsibility for the violence insofar as they tell lies that inflame it. That's just the truth. Look, all I continue to ask for is that people tell the truth, that they reckon with the truth and that they tell it, including when it comes at the expense of their own party as a political matter. Just tell the truth. That's all you have to do. And Obama, even at this late stage, refuses to do that. It's utterly contemptible. Man, this is so. Anyway, I wanted to make sure that that Obama was served the knockdown he deserves for that, because that was crazy. Should we end today with Kash Patel smacking various Democrat congressmen around? Do you want to do that, chat? How do we feel about that? Let's see. All right, let's do that. Here's Kash Patel smacking Eric Swalwell around yesterday in a House hearing. Cut 4. Here we go. FBI Director Kash Patel.
Did you tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files?
The question has been asked and answered.
You have not answered it, and we will take your evasiveness as a consciousness of guilt. Director, did Donald Trump ever say to you, just find and release the entire truth? Don't worry if I'm in it.
The instructions from the administration were to release all credible information, and we have done that.
You wrote a book called Government Gangsters. You identified 20 individuals in that book. You put me on that list at the top of the list. Thank you. My children find it flattering. 20 of those individuals have been investigated or have had adverse actions. Director, considering that you have identified these people as, quote, government gangsters, will you recuse yourself from making any investigation decisions about these individuals?
Anyone that has been terminated at the FBI has been done so
the
because
question
they failed
again,
to meet the muster in their constitutional obligation.
I will work on the audio-visual capabilities.
I'm going to borrow your terminology and call bullshit on your entire career in Congress.
I'm reclaiming my time,
it has been a disgrace to the American people.
I'm reclaiming my time.
You can reclaim your time all you want.
Mr. Chairman, you're going to allow a witness to speak this way? Mr. Chairman.
I mean, Eric Swalwell, he's just so stupid. You know, given that you've identified these people as government gangsters, will you recuse yourself in their prosecutions if necessary? Wait a second. What are you asking? So are you saying because I've identified that these people are criminals, should I recuse myself from investigating them? Does that make any sense whatsoever? No, of course I wouldn't recuse myself. I've identified that these people have committed crimes. Therefore, I'm going to continue to investigate them. Why would you recuse yourself from that? That's so stupid. But that is Eric Swalwell. Thank you, Fang Fang. Fang Fang, poor Fang Fang. Fang Fang definitely drew the short straw. You know that, right? Like, Fang Fang wasn't sure who the CCP was going to send her after. The Chi-Coms, call Fang Fang in, and they're like, look, we've picked your target. And Fang Fang says, okay, who is it? And of course, they're speaking in Chinese, not English. She goes, who is it? And they said, I don't know how to say this, but it's Eric Swalwell. And after she got a good cry in, after she, was able to collect herself, she did her duty for the Chi-Coms. She went in there. She did it for her country. And in that way, as awful as that country is, as awful as specifically the Chinese Communist Party is, she did what she had to, But boy, she drew the short straw. She ended up with Swalwell. Oh, man. All right, there you go. That's Kash Patel. There's a lot more from that. Thank God for Kash Patel. He went in there 2 days, one in the Senate, one in the House, smacking all those Democrats around. Thank you, Kash, for serving your country in that way. I've got a lot more to get to. We'll do it on the big national radio show today, 12 to 3 Eastern time. You can check it out on your local listings at thevinceshow.com or come join us, rumble.com/Vince. We broadcast the show live. Great to have you with us as always. Appreciate you. I'm back tomorrow. Coming up next here on Rumble, Steven Crowder. Stay tuned for that.